Lorraine Ash is a former New Jersey journalist and editor of Corona City, Voices from an Epicenter. Told through first-person stories, this book focuses on New Jersey and how it was one of the first COVID-19 epicenters. Lorraine, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's lovely to be with you.
COVID-19 was terrible, obviously, especially for us living in New Jersey, but there's so many stories and life-changing events that happened for so many of us, right? Because we had the time to sit and marinate on our thoughts, being stuck in our homes. And what is the premise of the book, and what inspired you to edit it together?
It started because at the center at Mariondale, which is in Ossining, just the other side of the Hudson, I teach writing, memoir writing, and it had to shut down. So they wanted to get together some kind of writing community when they couldn't meet in person. So we tried Zoom, and I met with 35 people. They've signed up for this COVID-19 diaries, writing in the age of pandemic. And we were giving prompts. I was talking about what was going on around us. Everybody was quarantined. And these stories that people started writing and reading were amazing. And I realized, this pandemic is a story too big for one voice, so it has to be polyphonic. It has to be an anthology, everybody's voices. So I had a friend of mine who was in the COVID-19 diaries. Her name is Sherry Wachter. She is the head of Magic Dog Press in Oregon. And she said, let's do a book. So we embarked on that project, and it grew and grew. We had to go way beyond those 35 people. We did 6 degrees of separation with those people. Then I did cold calls, and we wound up with 400 voices, but I had to choose 62 to put in the book. And then we had, at that point in time, photographers were out of work, right? And what do? They just photograph. That's their way of being. So they were all over New Jersey and New York, photographing these amazing, surreal landscapes. So we have the work of 18 of those photographers interspersed with the words. And it really does come across as a very compelling grassroots history of that time. These are writings from people's hearts. They have all kinds of experiences. They were COVID patients, they were nurses, they were people stuck at home, they were first responders, and it's all about what they went through for the first time in those very scary months.
You had 400 voices and stories to choose from. How were you able to whittle that down?
Well, I whittled it down by geography. I wanted to have people represented in New York City, in those suburbs, and in New Jersey, right down to the Jersey Shore. So in part it was because of geography, and also it was the diversity of experience. People who were, again, stuck at home, with different experience than first responders, different experience than people who ran out of food. I wanted to have a full span of experience.
Is there a story that sticks out to you that you'd like to share?
So many do, but I'm thinking about Jen Singer from Red Bank. Her story leads the anthology. Jen found herself, she took a train trip to Boston, and then she took a plane ride to Seattle, and just living her life at that time, and didn't realize these were two very risky things to do. And she wound up with COVID. And she wound up in a hospital down at the shore in a pediatric room. It was the only place she could be. And she found out she had a heart blockage. She had COVID and she had a heart blockage. She had a pacemaker put in. And this is the start of a long COVID journey for her that she's still living today. She's one of those people who, COVID just changed the trajectory of her life.
Of course. Did every person in this book have COVID, or did some just get affected by the lockdowns and maybe loss of job?
Well, we have 2 people who were affected by COVID, and everybody else was affected in a different way. The other person who was the COVID patient was actually a nurse. She's from Fair Lawn, and she was working in a hospital in Brooklyn and found herself infected. At one point, she was the only survivor in the ICU one night. It's an amazing story. She was wearing a locket that contained her deceased sister's hair and as inspiration. Her sister had died at 30, and she didn't want to have her parents go lose another daughter. So she was determined to get through. Really scary though, because as a nurse, she understood everything that was happening, everything that needed to happen, all the numbers, and she knew how much danger she was in. So she wrote her story in the form of nurses' notes, which was great, very compelling. They do have a happy ending in that so many people were resilient. You know, they were resilient and they were ingenious in what they brought to the table. I mean, they have the satisfaction of knowing that they made it through. Like the first responder from Gloucester who was realized, she went to a call and realized that the man, they were on his front lawn. Oh my God, this is the virus from China. It's actually here, as in right here now. I've got to rise to this occasion. And so, you know, a lot of people, like the nurses who were, you know, converting a cafeteria into, helping to convert a cafeteria into a COVID ward here in Hackensack. I mean, so they had that. They are heroes. You know, we see and we hear all the time, healthcare workers, thank you for our, and they were heroes, and they have that to know the rest of their lives.
Why the title, Corona City?
When we were in the COVID-19 diaries, Rich Devlin, who's also from Red Bank, was in the group, and his daughter was working as a nurse down the shore. And she was talking about how some of the rooms had to be re-rigged for ventilation systems. It really looked, you know, pretty makeshift in some areas. And he said, my daughter is saying, he's calling this Corona City. The hospital is now Corona City. And so I like that. You know, I like that a lot. It just immediately stood up. And I liked also the alliteration to the New York City, you know, with our epicenter.
Do you think that people will flock to read this trip down memory lane? Or did you write this more to have it in history? Because I know a lot of people are fatigued over the C word. I mean, I'm not. I can talk about it all day because it was so transformative in so many ways for me personally. But what do you say to those that maybe have that fatigue?
We wrote it as a grassroots history. We wrote it for posterity. We did, and also to create community in the present moment. But now, you know, we wrote it in 2020. We hustled to get this together. It was released in November 2020, and then we went on through other iterations of the book, ebook, and then we had a huge amount of work on the audio book. Now we're out enough where people are interested in reading it again, and not necessarily sometimes people in this area who read it, but we get a lot of interest from people in other areas who want to know what happened in New Jersey and New York. They're interested in New Jersey and New York and what goes on here.
It was totally different. I mean, in a lot of other parts of the country, it was not locked down like we were.
Exactly. With no knowledge of what was going on. You know, we were learning as we went.
You know, in so many ways, it feels like 4 minutes ago, not 4 years ago, especially because we still are dealing with it. There are still outbreaks and different variations of it, and it's not ever going to go away, I think.
2 years ago, January, there were 7,000 people in New Jersey hospitalized for COVID, and now there's 1,300. So it's still here.
Where can people find out more about you and to order a copy?
It can be found on Amazon, Corona City, Voices from an Epicenter, and also at my website, LorraineAsh.com. And one of the things about this book is that it's 100% of the royalties, and it's won many prizes, all the prize money, etc., goes right into hunger relief. So far we have succeeded in serving up 65,000 meals, and we keep going. We wanted the book to help. We wanted to get that. We wanted to create that historical account, but we also wanted the book to help. So that's how we did it.
I love that, and I did not know that. In New Jersey or nationwide?
Nationwide, wherever the greatest need is.
So 100% of the proceeds. Wow. So you're doing this out of love. What is driving you to do this?
Well, I am now working in books full time, but I have this deep journalism experience, and I felt a calling to do this, to get this on the record. to marry those two skills, the journalism impulse and also the narrative skills of book writing. And I love creating teams. I used to love working on news teams, and I created another one. The thing is that all these people are volunteers. The 62 writers, the 18 photographers, and the 62 narrators in the audiobook all worked for $1. My intellectual property lawyer did all the contract and legal work for free. The publisher did it for free. The audiobook producer and the casting director, all free. And amazingly, after we had created the audiobook, we got all the narration in, we heard from a composer in Athens, yes, Greece, who said he was so moved by what he was reading, he could hear music forming in his head. So he wrote us an original soundtrack and went into the studio in Athens and he had it recorded. So we have an amazing soundtrack. It rivals any major motion picture, honestly. So all these people were just gravitating because they wanted to contribute to this history and they wanted to help.
I love it. Lorraine, thank you so much once again for coming on here, and I look forward to picking up a copy of the book and staying in touch because you're so fascinating. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.